Yo, what is up everyone? Today we are doing What If Bell Was Ulquiorras Reincarnation. So pretty much I was about to say last time we left off, but we are starting this series from scratch. And I haven't done a Denmachi What If in over 2 months. So it's definitely gonna be interesting per se. So, without further ado, guys, sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Bring that heat, boy.
So, we start this what if on the first day, or the first episode of the anime or chapter or novel, as Bell Cornell walks into the city as he's about 17 years old, as he has just rags and his bag, of course, as he walks through Auraria looking for a Familia. As he spends the next few days looking for Familias, as he's not doing quite well. As what would happen is he'd be walking through and somehow, someway, he'd bump into somebody. I mean, that's not really uncommon, as obviously this person would apologize for then introducing themselves. It's in this type of era, they're not really, how do I say, isolated. So they would start talking, as this person would introduce themselves as Haruhime, as obviously she had been with the Ishtar family and they had been going through the city just for a few days or hours, whatever you want to have it as then Bell would introduce himself as Bell Cornell, as he was explaining that he was looking for a Familia, but obviously due to his weak level he couldn't really find one, as Haruhime would remember one goddess that actually was with Hephaestus for a few years before then kind of branching off, quote unquote, and to start her own Familia. This person was Lady Hestia, and they called the goddesses like lady, or like kind of a higher prefix. So she would then tell Bell this, and he would go there to a church, kind of a rundown church. So once he would get there, he would walk inside, obviously after knocking, as then he would see Lady Hestia. And obviously, Hestia is kind of confused and all, as then Bell would ask if he can join her Familia. As obviously, Hestia is not gonna refuse, so she would invite him into her Familia, and then she would go to give him his blessing. But whenever she would try to, something would kind of stop her, as whenever she would place her hands on his back, there'd be some sort of green energy that would stop her. As then Bell would kind of be confused, in which kind of Hestia would have a theory, but she wasn't really sure. So she'd go to she'd just tell Bell that maybe just she's not she's rusty at giving blessings, just as an excuse. She would go to Lady Hephaestus, in which she would ask not for a special katana, just a katana that can seal power, in which she would give it to her, but she would still be in debt about maybe 20 million, at least 20 million valas. That is a lot. I don't really know the currency, so I don't really know the weight of the currency. So last time Hestia was in debt by 200 million, and that seemed a lot for them. So I guess about 20-50 million. That's not as bad. So she'd be given the katana. Second one is Ulquiorra, as obviously when Hephaestus was handing it over, she would tell Hestia that this sword was from, it was quite potent, this and any of the gods or goddesses didn't recognize his power, as she would explain that it was from a parallel universe. As she would then explain the folklore or folk tale in which there was a tale from some of the gods from before Zeus, even before the Titan. Sorry, not the. I think they're called the Titans. Yeah, like before Cronus, that there was gods that used to reign over this specific world, but it was way more modernized. This would be obviously the Soul King. Obviously, a little bit, a few hundred years afterwards, it'd become Ra, and then obviously Aizen after the 20,000 year sentence. And obviously, she would explain some bits and parts of the lore of Bleach and how it became, and how their connection with swords inspired them to want to craft swords. Specifically, her brother, I believe. Not her brother. Like, gods don't have siblings. I'm tripping. But like some of the members in the Familia were inspired by the fact that they feel so connected to their sword, like almost like an extension of yourself. So she would then hand over the katana, as she would give the katana. Hestia would give the katana to Belle Cornell, as Belle would be told by Hestia to just put your pure power into it, just like your energy. As she would then give him a tip to like see your energy, as she would give him she's like imagining a river, and then just like kind of raise a dam and keep it closed, but kind of compressed. As then suddenly there'd be a glow in his hands, as the katana would start to glow, as then it would just kind of go back to normal. But something would happen a few seconds later. Deku's eyes would flash, not flash like flash, but like kind of like a mental unlock, I guess you can say, as he would start gaining memories and skills and abilities he had never actually known before. As then he would tell Hestia to do the not the status check, but the blessing. So once she would do it, there'd be a bunch of abilities that would show up, like Hieru, Cero, Segunda Etapa, Resurrection, Pesquisa, other techniques like that would show up, and she would start to explain to them what they do and how he can make them more powerful. As Deku, oh my god, why did I say Deku? I'm tripping. So pretty much Belle would spend the next few months training his abilities, just so enough he can actually use them without becoming like so exertedly tired. So what would happen next is, after the 3 months, he'd finally be on his first day to the dungeon. As what would happen is, once he would get there, he'd walk in, he'd start kind of fighting dungeon monsters he'd start the first floor, start to get a feel for it, as he was pretty good. You just need to refine his instincts. So what would happen is, would start to descend the floors, as he would start needing to use more of his abilities and his Hieru. So he would see this monster, as he would then randomly just point out his finger and start to feel this pull, this tug to use this technique, as a dark green circle would form in his hands, as it would start to become a little bit bigger, but it would stop just at the kind of like an inch width and an inch height, as then he would release it, and it would be a Sarah, obviously just a normal Sarah, not like Renway or Sarah Skuras. So this would go through the Minotaur's chest, as then it would disintegrate slowly, as Belle would pick up the stone, the monster stones, I guess you could say, or gem that would fall after you would slay it, and he would pick it up and put it in his bag before then continuing the floors until he got to the 5th floor. As once he would get there, he would see this weird looking kind of bull monster, as this would be the Minotaurs, as the Loki Familia had been around the 10th floor and they accidentally let the Minotaur go up. As Belle would recognize the power increase from the normal monster he had been fighting, and as suddenly there'd be another monster that would kind of come up, This would be a monster, but it had scales on it. This would be black dragon scales. Not really as powerful as black dragons themselves, but similarly a little bit stronger than the Minotaur. As Bell would then unsheath his sword, again, obviously, it kind of had its sheath, as he was ready. He would then use his Pesquisa to keep his awareness, just in case for any techniques they might use, as the bull would raise, lower its horns as it would start to charge up, sort of an energy blast. Obviously, Deku would then want to counter with his own, as he would raise his power level, as he would start to, Sero, which he had used on normal monsters, would become bigger and bigger, as he would then put more Reiatsu into it. He would then release the Sero as they would clash, creating sort of a mini explosion, as they had been both sent flying back, as Deku would then kind of catch himself sliding backwards. Deku would then appear in front of the monster before then slicing him through the shoulder, as it would start to go through his chest, not through his chest, but sort of around his lung area. Not that monsters actually have the same layout of humans when it comes to organs, but I'm just trying to give an analogy in a sense. So Bell would then, cut down, as he would keep, lowering his blade and cutting more deeper and deeper, as then he would keep the monster in kind of a place before he would then aim this, put his finger up to his face before then charging up his Sero before just taking off his head. Once he would do this, Deku's sword had been kind of stuck in the monster, as he couldn't take it out, and he was kind of left open after using the Sero, in which the monster was going to attack him. Obviously, he could have charged, just used another Sero, use Xehther to defend against the attack. Suddenly, someone would then cut the monster in half from behind, as it would then split in half, as its left part of its body and the right part of the body would kind of say goodbye. As then it started to disintegrate, you would see another adventurer. As once the monster he had killed disappeared, his sword obviously wouldn't be stuck since it's not there. As then he would pick up the crystal, as then he would pick up the other one before handing it over to the adventurer, as he would question her, what's her name, as then she would then say, Eis Wallenstein, and then, he would then kind of talk to her a little bit about, adventure level and all, as he was explaining this was his first day. And Eis has stated that, she had been, watching for, the few seconds she was there, and he had been, for some reason, quite strong for only being here on his first day, as she kind of noticed he had a lot of potential. As Deku, as Bell would then agree. As Bell would then leave the dungeon, he would go over to the guild. As once he would get there, he would ask Aina, who specifically which Familia Eis is from. As then she would answer being from the Loki Familia. As then she would bring up the list of Familia members there, as she would list off being for example, I don't even remember some of their names. I don't know why. I don't know why. I can't seem to remember some of their names. I know there's Bet, and then there's the two girls who look exactly the two twins. I kind of wish I remember their name, but it's not really necessary at this point for me to kind of remember their names, since the Loki Familia arc, going down to the 17th floor, is not really right at this moment, so that's a good thing. So after he would then ask for who Eis is, he would then go back to the church, as once he would get there, he would tell Hestia what happened in a dungeon previously, as then she told Belle to let's go celebrate, as they would go over to the bar. As once they would get there, they would then be kind of welcomed by Sir. As once they would get inside, they would sit down by the kind of main area of the bar, kind of by the bartender, I guess you could say, as they would order. And obviously Belle had gotten quite decent amount, enough to like kind of go crazy this evening. As he would do just that, he would kind of loosen up, not loosen up, but like kind of like have fun in a good way. Yeah, depends on what normal adventurers do after a long day of hunting monsters down, but we wouldn't know that. But after like a few, like 30 minutes to an hour they had been there, obviously Belle and Hestia had been conversing, and obviously Belle had started to get to know some of the people that work there, like Sir, and obviously Mai, I believe her name is, the owner of the bar. As he'd realized they were not, he wouldn't realize, but just the way their stance, their kind of personality, it seemed like not personality, but sort of the persona that they were from or they were ex or former Freya Familia members. So I mean, it's just kind of like a note he had taken down. It's not like something like really important. As what would happen is he would start to hear his name mentioned, not his name, but sort of description. As he would look to his right, as he would then see Bet talking like about him. Obviously, it wouldn't be in a bad manner, since Eyes had told him he had slayed one of the Minotaurs. As obviously he'd kind of be like, oh, it's just lucky or something, because he's heard, Belle that was his first day in the dungeon, Belle's first day in the dungeon. So he would then kind of say it was lucky or something, but he wouldn't really go too extreme. As what would happen is kind of Belle would walk over to the table, kind of introducing himself. As then, Bet would realize, this is the same person who defeated a Minotaur. As he would question him, like, what is your ability to like be able to like defeat a Minotaur at such on your first day in the dungeon. As Belle would then explain that he just has a lot of potential. As then they would kind of like chill for the rest of the evening, since obviously Bet hadn't like insulted Belle like to the extreme. So like Belle and Eyes and the other Loki familiars would start to converse and know each other more. As this would lead to the next day. As the next day, Deku, why do I keep saying Deku? Bro, it's gonna be a regular occurrence. I'm just gonna keep saying Deku instead of Belle. But Belle was heading towards the dungeon, as once he would keep going, and he would pass by Sir again. As she would say hi, and she would give him lunch, simply because I don't know, he's Belle, he's the MC, but he would head to the dungeon as he had went in, and he had continued his hunting. As this will be where I'm leaving off this portion of the What If. We'll be going over kind of more detailed advances, kind of like the prologue per se. But without further ado, guys, have an interesting day, or a good day, whatever you want to say, or whatever you want to interpret. So yeah, bye bye.